Hi everyone, my name is Sergey Gusev and welcome to my channel. Today I will continue talking about portrait painting and show how to paint a portrait with a palette knife. So I'm going to use only a palette knife and no brushes. I'm going to use Van Gogh oil paints. The list of them you can find in the description box. I won't use any medium at all. I'm painting on canvas. The size is 50 x 60 centimeters, which is about 20 x 24 inches. So let's begin. I start out with a big abstract dark spot. I'm not going to make any underdrawing, and I start right from blocking in the big spots. Usually I like to start from the dark spots, and I always suggest to start from the shadows or backgrounds to surround the face, the light of the face, with darker tones, because it is easier, at least in my opinion, to paint darker tones, and it is a little more difficult to paint the light spots of the face. After you blocked in the big dark spot of the shadow on the face, you can start working on the lights of the face and also block in the backgrounds. Usually I say that the light source is cold and we have cold lights and warm halftones and shadows, but in this case we have another situation, we have warm light. And so the shadows are going to be slightly colder than the lights, and halftones are going to be also colder. So keep it in mind when you work and use different paints for the lights and shadows. I mixed some burnt sienna with yellow ochre, added a bit of raw umber for the shadows, and I added a bit of cadmium red. For the lights I use more white and more burnt sienna. Once in a while I add some yellow lemon. And you see that right now the painting looks quite abstract. I'm still working mostly on the big spots. I'm not working on the details, and I'm not going to work a lot on the details in this portrait because it is going to be more lively, sketchy and unfinished. And generally I don't like to draw or paint a lot of details, because I think that the more details we paint, the less picturesque the image becomes. So in my opinion, it's better to care for the big spots of light and shadow, remember about warm and cool shades, and ignore details. Of course, I will spend some time to finish this painting, and of course I will work on the details on the eyes, nose, but generally I'm not going to work on the eyelashes, for example, or eyelids, or spend a lot of time painting the beard, hair and so on. Generally I always suggest my students or my followers on YouTube to paint more lively and unfinished and ignore details. Actually, I think that artists shouldn't copy photographs or life models, so when we paint, we should paint more personal and care less for what we see on the source picture or in life. Remember that artist is not a photo camera, And it's really important to show your emotions, your feelings about an object or subject you work on. So for me, textures and big spots are much more important than details. And actually we can all draw a lot of details and spend a lot of time. You don't need a lot of skills, and almost everyone can spend a lot of hours and make a good copy of a photograph. But in my opinion, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So when you paint, try to paint more abstract, at least in the beginning. Play with colors, you can make some experiments and use some other paints you have never used before. Make it an interesting process, get some joy, have some fun, and forget about what you see. You don't have to paint or draw exactly what you see. You have to paint what you feel. This way you will express yourself, make a personal painting. And when you make a copy of a photograph or when you copy what you see from life, you make usually something boring, not really alive, and not really interesting, not picturesque, and not artistic. You see that right now I'm working still on the big spots, and some colors, they don't look exactly like on the source picture. But I don't really care, because that's how I see it, that's how I want to paint. And I think even if some colors look very random, it's still good because it makes the painting more interesting and sort of unique. It looks a little different from the source picture, but it's more interesting as a painting, as an art piece. I know that many artists won't agree with me, and that's absolutely okay. But I think that once in a while you could paint something like this. Something quick, more alive, and just have some fun while working on it. Believe me, you'll get a lot of experience and you will understand a lot about how to mix colors, for example, how to use textures in painting, what to paint thin and what to paint thick. And this knowledge you will be able to apply to any of your paintings in the future. And even if you're going to paint something really finished, really detailed, you know that some parts we should paint thicker and put really thick and past brush strokes or even knife strokes. And when you know how to do it, you will easily do it, because you have some experience. Okay, while I'm working on this portrait, let's go back to the drawing basics. And of course you have to remember some basics when you draw or paint even with a palette knife. So remember that the shadows are going to be always darker than the lights. And remember that the lightest shadow is going to be much darker than the darkest halftone. This is the basic rule we always use when we draw, when we paint, so just keep it in mind. Remember, of course, about the light source. Remember that the shadows which are close to the light source are going to be darker, so the shadows in the eye sockets are going to be quite dark, and the shadow on the side surface of the head are going to be light because it gets a lot of reflections from the objects around. It's otherwise when we work on the lights. The planes which are closer to the light source are going to be lighter, and the ones which are further away will get slightly darker, just because they will get less light. It's a very simple and very basic rule. It's very easy to understand, and keep it in mind when you paint. Again, usually we use a cold light source coming from the scattered light of the sun. In this case, we are using electric light. This is a warm light source, so the lights are going to be warmer and the shadows will get a lot more cooler shades. When you paint with a knife, you can paint using big planes of the head. So you're like a sculptor working on the big planes and then slowly working on smaller ones. But we always start out from big planes and big spots of light and shadows, of big tonal relationships. The other thing I would suggest is to paint thicker, so put enough paints on canvas. Again, this is like sculpting, and when you sculpt or when you see someone sculpting, you know that a sculptor needs a lot of clay, right? So a lot of material. And right now we also need a lot of material, a lot of paints on the canvas to be able to sculpt. And actually, it is a lot of fun and a lot of joy. The process is really interesting when you have enough paint, when you work with paints, when you mix them directly on canvas. Okay, right now I'm going to work a little on the details, mostly on the eyes. I'm still using the same size palette knife. I'm working wet in wet. And sort of drawing with the tip of the knife. Working on the eyelids. Of course, I remember about the spherical shape of the eyeball. I remember that one part is going to be lighter and the other part will get into a shadow and become darker. So we actually apply the same rules we have talked about, and it doesn't matter if you're using a knife or brushes, we always use the same basic rules. I really hope that this video will inspire you and you will take your palette knives and paint something a little abstract, a little realistic, and have some fun. And I think that it's really important to paint these quick studies once in a while, and at least once a week, to get another kind of experience. Because believe me, you learn a lot in color mixing, and you learn a lot how to work with textures when you paint something quick, something impasto and unfinished. Remember that painting it's not details. Details are actually very dangerous for painting, and the more details you make, the less picturesque, the less alive you will make your painting. So forget about details. Remember that you are an artist and not a photo camera. Remember that you don't have to make a copy of what you see. And it's a lot more important just to demonstrate your emotions, your feelings about the subject you paint. It will make your painting look a lot more personal, a lot more interesting and individual. I actually think that even right now we can stop working and the painting looks, for me at least, quite finished and sketchy, lively. But of course I will finish it a little bit more because this painting I made especially for this channel, and I know that a lot of you want to see how to finish paintings, how to work on the details. So I'm gonna show how to work on the details with a palette knife. But in my opinion, if you want to work with a palette knife, you should forget about details, ignore them, and if you want to make a really detailed painting, then it's better to take brushes and work a lot longer on the details. So right now I'm mostly drawing using the tip of the palette knife. I have enough paints right now on my canvas. I'm not adding any more. And I just adjust the head, work on the big shapes. When I work on the backgrounds, I also correct the shape of the head. And right now I'm correcting the shape of the forehead. It's a very interesting technique, and I really hope that you will try it at least once. And if you want, you can upload your results on Instagram using my hashtag #GusevArtSchool, and in one of my next videos I'll be happy to talk about your paintings and maybe give you some tips. Remember that you can always go back and always paint something you used to. I mean, something very detailed, finished, and a bit flat, using brushes, using a lot of medium. But I really suggest you to try it at least once, and I hope you will find this technique really interesting and really funny, because believe me, you have a lot of joy, you get a lot of emotions, when you work like this. Right now I'm going to work a little on the shoulder girdle. I'm painting with spots of light and shadow. Of course I care for the tonal values. So when you work with the palette knife, when you make each knife stroke, it has to be the right tonal value and the right color. Let's work some more on the eyes. Don't make them completely black. Add some ultramarine. Add some random shades. You can actually make the contrast slightly stronger. So it's up to you, and when you paint like this, you have a lot of opportunities to create, to make something personal. If you are just a beginner and you don't feel really confident working with colors, you can start from painting black and white paintings with a palette knife. You can use just titanium white and, for example, burnt umber or raw umber or ivory black, and make quick black and white sketches where you have to care only about the tonal values. And when you get some more experience, when you understand values better, you will add colors. And you will see that your paintings will look even better, because tonal values are really important, and when you understand them, you will be able to apply this knowledge when you paint with colors. I'm slowly finishing my painting. I'm working on the details. I'm adding some tonal accents. Don't forget about the contrast, the difference between the lights and shadows. It is really necessary to show, otherwise we'll get a really boring, a bit flat dull painting. So again, recall all you know about tonal values, about dark accents and light accents. While finishing this painting, I want to sum up. So in this tutorial, I was painting from big abstract spots using my palette knife, and I really hope that I inspired you and you understood that it is necessary to paint quick sketches, very live and finished, work with big planes, big spots of light and shadow, and do not care for details at all, because as you see now, we can finish them at the very end, work a little bit, but the image we get, it's not super detailed. It's still sort of unfinished. It's more colorful than on the source picture, it's more personal, more alive, it has some interesting textures, which is very interesting to look at. But of course we have to care for the big spots of light and shadow, which means we have to remember about tonal values, remember that the shadows are always darker than the lights, and in this case the lights are warmer than the shadows. So you see, even though we paint a sort of abstract, or at least half abstract portrait, we have to remember a lot about the basic rule of realistic art. I really hope that I inspired you and you will take your palette knives and make something like this, or I'm sure even better. And if you have something like this, you can upload it on Instagram using my hashtag, and I will be happy to talk about this in one of my next videos and give you some simple tips and advices. And right now, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn the bell on, because new videos are coming out really soon, and so you won't miss out on them. Don't forget to visit my Facebook and Instagram accounts. Of course, remember that you can download the full video tutorials from my webpage and get a lot more information on painting portraits with oils. If you like this tutorial, put thumbs up, and if you want to help me out, share this video with your friends on your favorite social network. I think that right now I'm going to stop, make the last strokes, finish some small details, make small corrections here and there, and I think that's it. So, thank you for watching guys, and see you really soon in my next tutorials, and I wish you good luck with your own artworks.